We are just 1 week away from USC summer camp, heading into Steve Sarkisian's first season as the Trojans coach, and we bring in our USC guy from SB Nation, Evan Budrovih of Conquest Chronicles. Hey, Evan, how are you?
Good, Mark. Thanks for having me on, man.
Well, you look well rested from the summer. hope you've enjoyed the summer. It's almost that time. We're about 5 weeks away, even a little bit less than that at this point. I know we've talked about it in the past. Fans love to be entertained, unless you're a really hardcore college football fan that just loves to break down the blocking and tackling. And it sounds like this USC offense is going to entertain some people if Sark gets his way. So your thoughts about the transition in offense and how that's going at this point, and maybe some strides that need to be taken in August?
Yeah, this is the first time, even going back to the Pete Carroll era, where the shotgun set with the read option handoffs, it's going to be a legitimate part of the offense. It's going to be kind of evolutionary with the rest of the Pac-12 as they continue to play this high-tempo, fast-paced game. So I think Cody Kessler now, who's going to be the full-time starter this year, he's going to have to make some adjustments. It's a different style of game. It is a little more natural to his style, I think, because he likes to get the ball out quickly and let his weapons do all the work, essentially. But that should help him to a certain degree. And I think when it comes down to it, can this entire team that is a little undermanned, they don't have all the scholarship numbers they once did, can they be healthy enough to get all the reps in so then when the season comes against Fresno State in a few weeks, they can be ready to roll and get those plays going?
Yeah, Fresno State, a bit familiar with them coming off the bowl victory, so back-to-back against the Bulldogs. So let's look at the defense, Evan, because we talked about it before we came on, and I wanted your insight because my take was, wow, this defense has playmakers all over the field. You've lost a ton. We talked at different points about all the lost talent to the NFL, but there's plenty more. You talk about scholarship reductions, and that's still having an effect. But when you just talk about star playmakers, this defense is tough to beat.
Sure. If you just look at each level, you have Leonard Williams at the D-line, Hayes Pullard, the fifth-year senior at linebacker, and then when you get that Josh Shaw and Sua Cravens, they're two very talented guys in the secondary. It does help to have staples at each level, and especially facing these teams that are going to run the ball to the outside and throw it with four wide receivers. You have to have good playmakers at each level of your defense, and I think that's where USC has it. Now, the question is the depth going to be there? And we've talked about it back and forth for a year or two now. It's just when you don't have three deep at each position, God forbid something happens to one of these guys, and Kenny Bigelow, for example, a talented redshirt freshman who's going to play this year, he's out for the season. So that depletes the D-line a little bit and then puts more pressure because he was Leonard Williams' backup. So you assume Leonard's going to be fully healthy and ready to go because it's kind of funny. Last year he was only playing at, he said, 65, 70%. He wasn't even full go and still putting up top 10 numbers just in terms of sacks and tackles. And you have to imagine he's going to be even better this year. But can the rest of the guys, without the likes of Devon Kennard, without Morgan Breslin, just guys who've been there for so long, can these younger guys step up and make plays? They're certainly talented. We know that. But when the time comes, especially against Stanford week 2, they really made the schedule real nice for USC early. But can they step up and actually be ready for it? Because if not, if they start 1-1, you'd have to imagine that the pressure is going to start building. People are going to be like, well, what is this Sarkisian guy's all about? Can he make a difference? It snowballs, and obviously you want to win early and not put all the pressure on you right away.
Yeah, I had a Stanford guy on a couple weeks ago, so I looked at the schedule and I saw, wow, USC week 2. Wow, they hit him right in the mouth with that. Where that's typically like game 10, game 11, something in that range.
No, absolutely. We remember last year's game. It came down to the wire. Hidari makes the big kick to win it, and that kind of pushed Orgeron's whole camp forward for a few weeks there. And it really was a rallying cry. So you'd have to imagine Stanford's going to want revenge, and it's up in Palo Alto this year, so it'll be a great road trip for everyone. And it could decide, at least from USC's perspective, are they still in the hunt when they face UCLA or ASU down the road to even be in the Pac-12 championship?
So, Evan, we mentioned camp opening on August 4th, and this coaching staff has yet to win a game, but with the up-tempo offense and opening camp to the fans, they may be winning some fans over before they even step on the field.
Yeah, no, certainly. I think the biggest thing was just having Lane Kiffin off the books. That's the biggest win for the fan base. No offense to Kiffin, of course, but in all honesty, they're doing a great job of trying to at least appease the fans right away and say we're going to be more open to having practices available, and just making players more accessible to even the media or the fans, just so people understand that we're still a program that wants to be connected with the community. Based on where they are, for example, in South LA, where guys like Pete Carroll for years started their own community service programs, and players were feeding food to the homeless or doing certain things like that, just to be more connected to the fan base that it's going to show up 85, 90,000 anyway. But it was interesting. I was just looking at the numbers from last year. Their attendance was pretty down in that first half of the season, and obviously that was Lane Kiffin-aided with the loss to Washington State and some rough games there. But once Orgeron took over and the team got some momentum, they were getting 85, 90,000 people a game, which you'd come to expect over the years. But it'd be interesting to see in that first 2 or 3 home games, what is the home attendance going to be like? Because, and I hate to say it, but with the plans of renovating the Coliseum and putting in new seats and state-of-the-art Wi-Fi and all the perks the fans want, ticket prices are getting more expensive. They're not, luckily as a student, you just pay a little student rate, but for the rest of the fans out there, and me soon enough once I graduate, it'll be more expensive. And if the team does well and wins 10, 12 games, it'll be great. But if they struggle early on, like we've mentioned, it's going to be a lot harder to sell that product that has been so dominant for so long.
Evan, I know that you're working on a number of things. You've got the nose to the grindstone. You got the blinders on. You're focused on USC. But with all the talk that I hear, there's got to be, and I know it's not until late November, but there's got to be a little side periphery vision going across town to UCLA. It seems like everything I read mentions UCLA as the chic pick to make the National College Football Playoff. I think that's not that they can't do it, not that I would be shocked if it happened, but I think that they need to take care of business in the division at this point. What's the vibe, the feel around USC and USC followers about the hated Bruins at this point?
Well, as you know, they've beaten USC 2 years in a row now. They're starting to battle back and forth in recruiting, and that's the biggest thing. Can you get the best kids to come there? So they're doing a good job in that department. Jim Mora, he's a bulldog. He's not going to take things lightly, and he's going to fire some shots at Sarkisian when he gets a chance, or just have a little back and forth just to make sure that people remember, UCLA is still a part of this conference. And I honestly think, of the teams, I even think they're a better or a worse matchup for USC than to Stanford, just because of Brett Hundley and the way he's been playing. And even the last 2 years, USC's had no answer when Hundley either makes plays out of the pocket or can just hand it off to the Miles Jacks, the Jordan James of the world, and let them just dominate with their good offensive line. So USC's going to have to definitely be ready. And I was just at Pac-12 Media Day last week, and they were asking the same questions, like, what do you think about UCLA, or what do you think about USC? And both sides, they obviously downplayed it to an extent, but especially from the UCLA side, Brett Hundley said it perfectly. He understood and said, it's been nice these last 2 years. We've been able to dominate the city, so to speak, and people now realize that the Rose Bowl's the hot ticket, and there's excitement back to UCLA football. So USC can't just walk in there and say, oh, okay, we've beaten them in years past, and we'll just roll it over them. Because if they do, they're going to get their tails handed to them, just like last season, and UCLA will run off to a big championship game. Or I agree with you there. I think the national playoff might be a little big, but at least the Pac-12 championship, and who knows what happens from there.
Evan, I mentioned off the top that you look well rested, but we know better than that. You're cranking out the content. I see a number of articles that come out. It seems like you crank out at like 5 a day. Can you let us know what you're working on right now, maybe what's recently out there and what's coming up?
Sure. I think the big focus right now is a lot of positional previews. I'm a big guy. I just love to break down what players are doing well at certain positions. We'll have linebackers, secondary, big defensive outlook this year, just because of a lot of new faces. Like we mentioned, 6 guys from last year who left to the NFL, and now these new kids are stepping up. So just getting some stories on them and kind of figuring out who's going to be in play once August 4th comes around. And I think fall camp's one of the best times of the year because it's a lot of the kids who just came out of high school, big 4-star, 5-star kids, or kids you just didn't really know about, getting a lot of reps and chances to play. So definitely in the next week or so, a lot of previews, a lot of features, just chances to see who these kids are before they play at the big time.
All right, Evan Budrovih on Conquest Chronicles on the SB Nation platform. Hey, Evan, maybe we'll track you down before Fresno State.
Oh, sounds good, Mark. Can't wait for it.